everybody doing?
What do you think of police telling protesters coming into town this weekend for Rolling Thunder that they can't use their vehicles? Are you comfortable with that?
That's not what I was coming out to speak about, I understand. This morning, I actually sent a letter off to the RCMP Commissioner, Brenda Lukey, asking her to reopen the investigation into the case of a potential fraud committed under the criminal code by Justin Trudeau. As we know, yesterday in question period, Prime Minister Trudeau admitted that he did not have authorization from the department head to take the luxurious vacation in the Bahamas that was offered as a gift. So this is beyond the finding of 4 counts of being guilty underneath the Code of Ethics and the Conflict of Interest Act, as described by the Ethics Commissioner. This is an issue of criminality under the Criminal Code and needs to be now reopened.
Why, though? Because police already looked at this?
So based upon the evidence presented yesterday by the Prime Minister himself, in his own admission, when you look at the decision tree in the documents that were obtained through access to information from the RCMP, that they considered whether or not there was a fraud committed. What was unknown is now known. And so they have new evidence and they need to reopen this investigation.
The document suggests there were a multitude of other factors as well, sir. Things around not being able to use the Ethics Commissioner's report as something that they could put forward in court, questions around parliamentary privilege, questions around being able to extract the same kind of evidence. So what degree of confidence?
So I believe that the Prime Minister now needs to cooperate, him and his office, in this investigation. There was no interview done by the RCMP with the Prime Minister, and so we do expect the Prime Minister to be open and honest. There is now a shadow of doubt surrounding his own honesty and integrity based upon his testimony in the House of Commons. And he never provided this evidence before, that he never had authorization, as described underneath federal legislation, to accept a gift, especially worth $215,000, from a registered lobbyist.
And he wasn't asked by the police about it either, right?
So the police never interviewed him. So that's why, based upon new evidence, this gives the grounds to reopen this case and actually get down into the details of what the Prime Minister knew, what he did with that information, why did he take this this trip and accept this luxurious vacation gift, and ultimately it comes back to the fact that the integrity of the Prime Minister, of his office, and of the RCMP are at stake here, and we have to restore confidence in public trust.
The RCMP also said charging a sitting Prime Minister would cause negative effects.
So then it comes down to, they did mention the issue of public interest, but we're also talking about the whole ordeal of whether or not the Prime Minister is above the law. He cannot act with impunity. He should actually be held to a higher standard, and that's why the RCMP have to reinvestigate, and that's why the Prime Minister should cooperate.
Well, we're talking about him not writing a letter to himself.
Right.
I mean, saying that out loud seems ridiculous.
But this is what the RCMP looked at, right? And that's and so the RCMP said there was ambiguity, and they didn't know whether or not he gave himself permission. He admitted yesterday that he did not give himself permission. So if you look at the decision tree matrix that the RCMP uses to determine whether or not a fraud was committed, it leads straight down to a potential fraud. And so they need to actually...
I didn't get to the substance of my question, which is that perhaps we should reform the rules of Parliament. Asking for criminal investigation to a sitting Prime Minister, as the RCMP said, could cause negative damage to the country as a whole. But changing the laws of Parliament so that there's actually some sort of oversight here for someone like you say, the Prime Minister needs to be held to account.
So
why are the Conservatives not asking for some additional oversight?
Well, first of all, let's get down to the bottom of what actually happened now. And there is the issue of a violation of the criminal code, and we need to actually look into that in greater detail. So that's what we're asking for right now, the Prime Minister to cooperate with the RCMP. As to changing existing laws, we already have underneath the Accountability Act, one of the things that we brought in place was the Public Prosecutor's Office, and that prosecution service will then take a look at what the RCMP actually find in their investigation, and they will be the appropriate authority to move forward if charges are laid. Anyway, thank you. Say that again?
Would this be a case perhaps after Mr. Trudeau is removed from office?
For sure. Like, I think based upon, even though he's still sitting Prime Minister, everything we can do to improve transparency, to improve accountability laws, to work more closely with, legislators to provide greater oversight on how public officials behave is in the best interest of Canadians. Thanks.
But what do you make of police telling protesters to cancel their votes?
Nice to see all of you. Today, my colleague James Bezan sent a letter to the RCMP asking them to reopen the investigation of Justin Trudeau regarding criminal fraud charges. Yesterday, new information came to light. There was specific information that we found out about a week ago that the RCMP needed in terms of their investigation of the Prime Minister. This is a decision tree matrix that the RCMP used when they were looking at possibly investigating the Prime Minister in terms of fraud charges. You all should have a copy, but you can see that there are a number of questions they asked. Was Mr. Trudeau a government official? Yes. Continue going down, did he accept the benefit? Yes. Did the person you received the benefit from have dealings with the government? Yes. All of this leading the RCMP to decide if there would be a decision taken on whether to proceed with criminal charges. There was one piece missing, and that was, did Mr. Trudeau have the consent in writing of the head of the branch of government for whom he worked? That was unknown. The head of the branch of the government that he worked is himself. He's the Prime Minister. Yesterday, new information came to light during question period when the Prime Minister answered my question. I was surprised that he did, but I was grateful he did, and he said no, he had not given himself permission. We believe that that is warrant and that is cause for the RCMP to reopen this investigation. Folks, the fact is there's a chance the Prime Minister of Canada has committed criminal fraud. It's very serious. It brings not only the Prime Minister himself under suspicion and questions his integrity and his honesty, but his very office. We've seen a pattern with this Prime Minister of not only pushing the boundaries of the law, but breaking the boundaries of the law. It's time it stops. The Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, is not above the law. And in Canada, we cannot not allow even a question of whether the Prime Minister is above the law to go forward and to be undecided. So we've asked the RCMP to do this. We will pursue and see what their answer is, but we just can't let the Prime Minister continue to push and break the boundaries of the law. That's all I have to say, but thank you very much.
Vous avez peut-être entendu que Facebook envisage de couper son accès au Canada si le projet de loi est peut-être adopté. Qu'est-ce que vous en pensez?
On verra ça dans ce temps-là, mais je serais surpris que Facebook coupe un marché aussi important comme le Canada. Là.
Mais est-ce qu'on est vraiment un gros marché?
Ben, un marché qui paye toujours. On paye la publicité. Il y a des pays qui ne payent pas beaucoup. D'autres, au Canada, si on regarderait l'historique, la marge de publicitaire qui se met est quand même intéressante. Et ces plateformes-là sont rendues avec des marges relativement serrées quand même. Donc, c'est à nous de se servir de cet argument.
Le fait d'évoquer la menace.
Oh! Les menaces, on en a autour du bras, c'est moins fait que la guerre. Hein?
Mais est-ce que ça devrait faire reculer le ministre? Savoir qu'il y a cette menace, un peu comme en Australie?
Non.
Non, on doit aller de l'avant?
Oui.
OK.
Merci.
Merci. Non, c'est pas vous. Qui a fait la menace un peu comme à l'australienne, là, que si on allait de l'avant avec le financement des médias par Facebook, ils couperaient peut-être le service. Vous en pensez quoi?
Ils ont évoqué ça.
Qui a évoqué ça? Excusez-moi, je ne
Hier,
comprends
en
pas de
comité
ça.
parlementaire,
Oui.
une autre dirigeante de Facebook a laissé entendre que Facebook n'écarte pas de couper le service si le projet de loi est adopté. Qu'est-ce que vous en pensez?
Ben, écoutez, ça mérite attention, mais je ne suis pas assez au courant du dossier précisément. Je vais l'annoncer. Désolé, j'avais d'autres préoccupations ces jours derniers. Plutôt que de dire des bêtises, je préfère faire confiance à ceux qui savent de quoi ils parlent.
Monsieur Deltell, concernant cette proposition du gouvernement de saisir, vendre, utiliser les biens donc des gens qui se retrouvent sanctionnés par le Canada, des Russes sanctionnés par le Canada, puis de prendre ça pour aider l'Ukraine. Qu'est-ce que vous pensez de ça?
Bien, on n'est jamais à l'abri d'une bonne idée. Et il faut comprendre aussi que dans cette situation-là, il faut mettre de la pression sur les Russes. Il faut mettre aussi de la pression sur ceux qui ont un accès direct auprès du chef Poutine. Et on peut comprendre que ces gens-là, identifiés très bien à travers le monde, peuvent avoir une influence peut-être plus forte que bien d'autres personnes. Alors, toutes les mesures visant à mettre de la pression sur Poutine qui pourraient faire en sorte qu'il change complètement et radicalement son attitude serait une bonne chose.
Qu'est-ce que vous voulez dire? On n'est jamais à l'abri d'une bonne idée. Je
Ben,
comprends pas.
dans le sens, je trouve ça correct. Là.
OK.
I will not say that in English because I think it will raise an issue that. Sorry.
The fact though that it's included in the budget bill, when the Liberals had said no omnibus, so maybe if you want to weigh in on the idea generally, but also about it being in the budget.
Well, some people will remind us that we have a good experience, and we have a lot of experience on our side about omnibus bus and dripping something on that. Well, what I think is that, more pressure we put on Putin, better it is. And we all know that those billionaires, the Russian billionaires, could have a good access to Mr. Putin. So if they can, it can help to put pressure on Mr. Putin, why not?
Is the budget the right place for it, though?
Well, obviously, I don't think this is the right way to do it. It should have a good debate and great debate and all that stuff. But the point is that if there is an opportunity for us to put more pressure on Putin, why not?
What do you think about the protests coming to Parliament Hill this weekend? Do you think it's fair that police are saying you can't bring your vehicles? Are you comfortable with that?
Well, unfortunately, we all keep in mind what happened a few months ago here in Ottawa because of lack of policeman leadership and lack of political leadership. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm from Quebec City. We had a protestator during many weekends, 2 or 3 weekends in a row, I think. And everything was okay. Why? Because those people had a frame to act, and they did it correctly. I remember the mayor of Quebec said, well, be welcome to Quebec City. I want to hear you. You have something to say that. But when it's over, it's over. That's the main issue. So based on the experience that we had a few months ago, I think there is always room and place, and we shall fight to keep democratic opposition in our country. And for sure, if they decide that they should do it somewhere else, that's the police decision. And I don't want to intervene personally as a politician in the job of police. But what we have seen in February and January and February events here in Ottawa was a lack of leadership from the police and from the political player. We had that in Quebec City. This is why Quebec City was a good example to follow.
Justement,
Pardon.
est-ce que ça vous inquiète, ce deuxième convoi-là qui s'organise?
Ben, les gens ont le droit de manifester, il n'y a pas de problème avec ça. Puis au contraire, dans une société démocratique comme nous sommes au Canada, il faut s'assurer que les manifestants qui ont des choses à dire puissent le dire, mais puissent le dire de façon correcte, en respect des règles. Souvenons-nous de l'exemple de la ville de Québec, puis je sais de quoi je parle, parce que je suis de Québec. À Québec, vous avez eu un exemple où il y a eu du leadership tant policier que du leadership politique, où le maire de Québec a dit aux gens, venez, il n'y a pas de problème, venez à Québec, venez manifester, mais manifester selon le cadre. On veut vous entendre, vous avez des choses à dire, dites-le. Mais quand c'est fini, c'est fini. Ce qu'on n'a pas vu à Ottawa. Sorry?
Are you coming this weekend to Ottawa to check out Rolling Thunder?
I will be in my riding. Well, to tell you the truth, I will not be in my riding. I will be nearby my granddaughter who will celebrate her second birthday. Merci.
Mais Monsieur Deltell, Monsieur Charret a dit, par exemple, que le fait que M. Poilievre ait endossé le précédent convoi, ça l'a disqualifié au poste d'aspirant premier ministre. Vous en pensez quoi, vous?
Alors, évidemment, une course au leadership amène ce type de déclaration-là. Moi, ce que je maintiens toujours, c'est qu'il y a des cadres légaux pour manifester, qu'il faut respecter les lois. Et que lorsque vous avez une occupation, ben là, malheureusement, ça dépasse les bornes. Et pourquoi on a eu cette situation-là? Parce qu'il y a eu un manque de leadership, tant policier que politique, ici à Ottawa. Et malheureusement, on a vu pendant 3 semaines de temps M. Trudeau qui s'est croisé les bras, qui a strictement rien fait, qui s'est assis sur ses mains, non sans rappeler les événements de la Saint-Jean-Baptiste de 1968.
Vous trouvez que ça le disqualifie?
Many of your caucus colleagues supported that convoy.
Yes.
They support Rolling Thunder, and did that not also hurt?
Well, as I said, and I will repeat it anytime. Every time you will have that kind of question, that's what I'm saying to my people in Quebec City. And I'm very pleased to say that again. Yes, there is room for manifestation, and we shall respect the right to manifest and to be opposed, to demonstrate your opposition. Manifest is not good in English. To demonstrate our opposition. This is right. This is what democracy is all about. But there is rules we shall respect, as the protester or the manifestant did in Quebec City. In Quebec City, you had a lot of people who were upset with that. The beginning of that was okay, but when you stay more in the place and you don't move while you should move, well, it's not the way to do it. That's my personal point of view. I'll express that.
I understand your criticism of the police, and I understand where you're going, but at the same time, when did the tone change from your comments on how long that...
Well, I will remember you that when we had the debate on this law, on the Measure Act,
Yeah, emergency measure.
Emergency measure, right. Sorry for that. Our leader was crystal clear. They have to move. She said that 3 times in her speech. That was coming.
After she's reported them staying.
Well, she said.
She had taken pictures, gone to dinner. I mean, this is
Yeah,
a
okay. As I tell you, and I will repeat it again, with no problem. The point is that, yes, they have the right to demonstrate their opposition to some policy. This is what democracy is all about. But when it's too long, when you stay there while you occupy the situation, instead of demonstrate your opposition to something, now the line has been crossed, and that's exactly what Madame Bergen said in her speech, formal speech in the House of Commons. Not a clip just like that to please someone else. The formal speech in the House of Commons, she said it's time for them to move. She said that 3 times.
Monsieur,
I was very pleased by
sur un
that.
autre sujet, là, à l'Université Laval, là, c'est ce poste de professeur exclu pour les hommes blancs. Je ne vous avais pas entendu là-dessus. Vous en pensez
Oui,
quoi?
ça fait 3 semaines, ça, à peu près.
Oui,
cette
je
affaire-là.
sais, mais toujours une bonne histoire.
Oui, je ne vais pas vous faire la leçon, mais disons, il y a 3 semaines, c'était peut-être l'actualité. Là, ça ne l'est pas.
Oh, mais j'ai juste
On a toujours. Oui, OK, d'accord, oui, merci. Je pense qu'il est toujours positif de solliciter des candidatures et de mettre de l'avant des éléments positifs. De là à exclure certaines personnes, je ne pense pas que ce soit le chemin à suivre.
Est-ce qu'Ottawa devrait retirer cette obligation? Parce que ça vient d'Ottawa. Ce sont des obligations...
Il y a une différence entre proposer et soutenir des candidatures qui respectent certains cadres et d'extraire certaines personnes du processus. Moi, personnellement, je pense que de mettre de côté systématiquement des individus, c'est pas le chemin à suivre.
OK, merci.
Merci bien. Au revoir. J'ai été poli, hein?
Ben oui, puis moi aussi. Bye.
I've got a very important question for all of you. Why is the government failing Canadians at Passport Canada offices? What a joke. People are waiting 5, 6 a.m. in the morning. They're not working at full capacity when everyone's trying to get their passport renewed?
So in fact, during the pandemic, on the passports, you had to have a travel ticket to get your passport renewed. Otherwise, they said you'd have to wait in queue until it opened up. And now, surprise, surprise, they got a backlog, and Canadians are waiting, and the system can't handle it.
Couldn't say it any better myself. You guys have a great day.
Sir, as an MP, are you hearing this concern from constituents?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, a lot.
Like, can you quantify for that?
Well, I was in the office. I was traveling the last week, but I was in the office for 2 days of constit meetings, and the phone was basically, we had like a dozen cases in one day. Yeah.
Thank you.
About the rules around rolling thunder and police asking protesters not to bring their vehicles right in front of Parliament.
What I think is really interesting with respect to this demonstration and any demonstrations that might come to Ottawa are that the Ottawa police are employing or planning to employ techniques that we were told during the Freedom Convoy that they couldn't use without the Emergencies Act. So they said that they couldn't create an exclusionary zone without the use of the Emergencies Act. So what we're seeing now is the police engaging in what should be done and has often been done in the nation's capital, and that's making sure that people are able to safely exercise their democratic and lawful rights to protest. So I think that that's really important and interesting in the context of the review of the use of the Emergencies Act. So I hope that it's peaceful and respectful, and that everyone's able to engage in their democratic rights safely.
That we maybe didn't need that law in the first place?
Well, I think that the government has failed to make the case that they've satisfied the criteria, and one of those criteria is that there is no existing law that would have allowed them to manage the situation, which we already saw to be the case at the border crossing, the Windsor border crossing. That situation was diffused before the Emergencies Act was in force, and so.
Oh, sorry. Is it possible that we couldn't do that at the first time because the police didn't act prior to the convoy coming in, and therefore it was too late, and then they couldn't use those tools? But this time, if we use it ahead of the coming of the convoy, it's going to be okay?
Well, I think it's an interesting question. If the failure to act by law enforcement created a national emergency, but the question is whether were there laws that allowed the police to resolve the situation without the invocation of an unprecedented law that had been not used since its creation more than 30 years ago, and that case wasn't made by the government.
But to be clear, are you comfortable with police telling protesters coming to Parliament, you can't bring your vehicles, this is the bounds you're allowed to protest? Like, Is this okay with you when we talk about free speech, the right to protest? Are the instructions you're seeing fine in your mind?
So I haven't reviewed the detailed instructions that the City of Ottawa has put out, but Parliament Hill is exactly where we want people to protest, but Parliament Hill does not include Wellington Street. That's a city street. And so during demonstrations that have happened previously, in years prior to COVID-19, there were all kinds of road closures and detours that were put in place, particularly with heavy pedestrian concentrations. We've seen protests involving the agricultural sector with tractors parked on Wellington Street that caused the closure. So I think that it's important that they have a management plan that's in place so that we can allow people to safely participate, in their democratic rights on Parliament Hill. So if the police are exercising their powers lawfully, and and I expect that they are, and they're able to manage protests like this one with existing laws, then I think that that's a real knock against the government's case that the use of the Emergencies Act previously was required.
But in your mind, could those rules, you're talking about there should be rules, that's okay. In your mind, could those rules exclude the presence of vehicles on Wellington?
There's a conversation happening right now between the City of Ottawa. I think they're trying to engage the House of Commons because they don't want Wellington Street to have vehicular access at any point in time. And so the street has been restricted, has had restricted vehicular access for several months. And so, I think it's a municipal decision. And so if the City of Ottawa wants to give a street to the federal government or to the NCC, that's a great conversation for the mayor or whoever's running for mayor to have with the Prime Minister and Cabinet. But, the parliamentary precinct needs to be able to operate. People need to be able to come to Parliament Hill, exercise their democratic rights, and we need to make sure it's done safely, respectfully. And with that, hope everyone has a great day. Thanks very much.
Une demande à la GRC du voyage sur la capitale, nous en parlons.
Oui, effectivement, mon collègue James Bezan a envoyé une lettre à la commissaire de la GRC pour demander la réouverture de l'enquête sur le voyage de M. Trudeau sur l'île privée de la Gacan. Pourquoi? Parce que dans des documents qu'on a reçus suite à une demande d'accès à l'information, on a appris que la GRC avait envisagé de déposer des accusations de fraude contre le premier ministre, mais dans son arbre de décision, il y avait un élément qui était sans réponse, c'était à savoir qui avait donné l'autorisation au premier ministre de faire le voyage. Et hier, le premier ministre a répondu qu'il n'avait pas reçu et qu'il n'avait pas demandé l'autorisation, qu'il ne s'était pas donné l'autorisation. Donc, compte tenu de ces éléments nouveaux-là, on demande à la GRC de faire une enquête. Je vais juste prendre un souffle.
Sur Facebook, vous avez peut-être entendu hier la dirigeante dire en comité parlementaire que Facebook n'exclut pas de couper l'accès à son réseau social si le projet de loi sur les géants du web est adopté. Qu'est-ce que vous en pensez?
Bien, je pense qu'on devrait attendre que ce projet de loi-là soit adopté. Il va y avoir des études en comité, il va y avoir toutes sortes de démarches. Donc, Facebook réagit peut-être un peu rapidement à cette annonce-là. Chose est sûre, on entend beaucoup de commentaires de la part des médias régionaux, de la part des gens, particulièrement en région, sur justement tous ces capitaux-là qui s'en vont vers les grands et les géants du Web. Donc, je pense que c'est important qu'on en parle. C'est important, les parlementaires ont un devoir, on doit étudier cette question-là. Donc, Facebook a peut-être réagi un peu tôt. Je pense qu'on va laisser les parlementaires faire leur travail, puis par la suite, Facebook pourra prendre ses décisions quand les projets de loi seront arrivés. Mais pour l'instant, c'était prématuré, selon moi, pour géants comme ça d'essayer de menacer les parlementaires avant même qu'on étudie le projet de loi.
Vous pensez quoi de cette loi? Est-ce que vous, au parti, vous voulez la changer de manière substantielle?
Bien, je pense qu'on va l'étudier. Pour l'instant, je n'ai pas encore eu l'occasion moi-même de l'étudier particulièrement, mais comme je l'ai dit, ça vaut la peine de se pencher sur cette question-là. Particulièrement, je viens d'une région, puis je sais l'impact qu'ont eu les pertes de revenus publicitaires pour les petits journaux régionaux, pour les radios locales. Donc, c'est important qu'on se penche sur la question. Est-ce que le gouvernement a bien fait ou pas? On va le voir. On va avoir l'occasion d'étudier davantage le projet de loi, mais c'est une question qui doit être débattue en Chambre.
Vous l'endossez, quoi?
Moi, ce que je dis, c'est qu'on doit se pencher là-dessus parce qu'on a vraiment un problème d'information dans nos communautés locales, dans nos communautés régionales particulièrement. Moi, je le vois, là, les journaux. J'ai été rédacteur en chef d'un journal. Il y avait 100 pages à l'époque quand j'étais dans le journal. Maintenant, c'est des journaux de 24 pages, 16 pages. Ça n'a absolument aucun bon sens. Où est allé tout cet argent-là en publicité? C'est pas vrai que les commerces n'annoncent pas. Donc, on a vu une fuite de l'argent publicitaire vers les géants du Web. Je pense que c'est important qu'on se penche là-dessus. On a besoin des médias en région. On a besoin que les médias en région fassent leur rôle. Et pour ça, ils ont besoin de sous pour être capables d'opérer. Donc, on va voir. Je pense que ça vaut la peine d'étudier ce projet de loi-là. Puis on va effectivement probablement amener certaines modifications. Mais
quand un gros comme Facebook fait la même menace qu'il avait faite à l'Australie, il dit hey, on va couper le canal Facebook au Canada.
Mais encore une fois, je pense que c'est prématuré de faire des menaces comme celle-là. Puis j'ai pas l'intention de me plier. On va étudier, puis on va l'étudier comme il faut. Puis c'est pas parce que Facebook fait des menaces qu'on prendra pas le temps d'étudier convenablement un projet de loi qui peut aider les médias en région à sortir la tête de l'eau. Pardon? On Facebook, sorry. Okay, could we finish in French and after I'll do it in English because I have some difficulty to switch.
On voit de motocyclistes qu'on voit venir là. Durant la première semaine, puisqu'on voit des camionneurs, votre parti a dit que ce sont des patriotes. Est-ce que ces motocyclistes sont des patriotes?
Bien, je ne commenterai pas sur les commentaires de quelqu'un qui a décrit comment le convoi. Ce que je peux dire, c'est qu'on va voir en fin de semaine si on a besoin d'une loi sur les mesures d'urgence pour traiter une manifestation qui va se dérouler au Parlement et comment est-ce qu'on va faire pour gérer la situation. Je pense qu'on va voir effectivement comment les autorités policières vont être en mesure de gérer ça. Est-ce qu'une loi d'urgence était vraiment nécessaire pour gérer une manifestation quand on s'en occupe dès le départ? C'est ce qu'on va voir.
Oui, tu gères bien ça, comme ce qu'on a annoncé dans les derniers jours.
On verra. Je peux pas présumer des résultats, mais
on est mieux organisé pour éviter justement d'en arriver à une loi.
Ben, on a vu à Québec que les manifestations ont pu avoir lieu, que les gens sont repartis. Il y a une manière différente de le traiter qu'Ottawa a eu de le traiter, ce dossier-là. Je pense que probablement qu'on a pris exemple sur ce qui s'est fait ailleurs pour traiter les événements qui s'en viennent ici.
So, in English, you think that...
I can try. If I'm poor... Okay.
No problem.
Okay.
Better than my French.
Okay, so...
Just interested because I was following what you're saying about basically what we heard from testimony, Facebook saying that they would remove news. It's a similar type of threat that they seem to make to Australia over this legislation that they're bringing in. So what's your reaction to that threat from Facebook?
Is redacteur en chef is chief editor in English? Editor-in-chief, okay, thank you. I was editor-in-chief of a small paper in my hometown in Thetford Mines, and I saw a lot of money flowing out of my media because the big tech company just keep it, and they wanted to have it all, and now the paper are so small that their life is in danger. So we need to address it. We need to protect the media in the region in Quebec, and all around Canada, because we need media. We need someone to talk about what is happening in our little place all around Canada, and there's a real problem. We will not be intimidated by threat like this. We will do our job as parliamentarians, and we will study it because we need to. This is our job. We need to protect media, and we need to protect democracy in Canada. And the media in my hometown, in Thetford Mines, are essential for us to spread the message and for everyone to have an opportunity to say what they have to say. If we do not have media in small rural area in Canada, we will be in bigger problem than just having big Facebook company. So we will do our job, we will study it, and I'm just saying to Facebook, just wait and see.
Now, do you think Facebook is potentially bluffing, since they did make the same threat in Australia, and as far as I know, in Australia and Facebook, you can still access news on there after they initially said, no, we'll take it away, but take a step back?
They anticipated the result of what we will be doing. So, like I said, we will not be intimidated by those kind of threats. We will wait, we will study the bill, and they will have enough time to say what they have to say about it, and we will adopt a bill at the end. And now, at that time, they will be able to react and to say what they have to say, but I think it's too early in the process for them to treat us like that.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci.